Hello everyone, welcome back to the SMITE Comprehensive Guide to King Arthur. This is going to be a very interesting match because this is going to get into a lot of the details of what I was talking about in the previous episode about variations from what I normally build on King Arthur. Let me actually say build. But the reason why this is quite the deviation is because in this particular instance, I'm guessing here that Camazotz is my landing opponent. Why do I think this? Well, primarily because there are two mages. Usually when there are two mages, there's really only two options for them. One, the mage is an ADC. Now, neither of these mages, neither Vulcan nor Janus, are good at ADC. Their auto attacks are not strong enough, and they have no attack speed buff in their kits. So that's really not going to be a likely option. The other option is jungle, which in this case, I'm guessing is Janus. Now, there is the very slim possibility that I'm incorrect and Vulcan is the solo lane, or alternatively, that Hercules is the solo lane and Camazotz is some kind of sustain solo support. This is possible, but extremely unlikely. I'm very confident Uller is going to be the ADC, I'm pretty confident that Vulcan is going to be the mid, and I'm pretty confident Janus is jungle, support Hercules, and solo lane Camazotz. Now this is very interesting for me as a solo lane King Arthur, and I'm going to talk about that here. You'll notice I have built Tainted Steel. By the way, you can actually see here that I'm double checking to make sure I'm correct, and you can see Camazotz right there. So I am correct. Now I've built Tainted Steel in this particular instance because it's really King Arthur's only way of combating the insane sustain of Camazotz. There's just no other way around this. The only other option would be to rush Brawler's Beatstick, which isn't ideal, because quite honestly, that can reduce your protections overall, lose your sustain, right? It's really not an ideal solution. With Tainted Steel, I can flex into Runeforged Hammer if I need to sustain, or I can flex into something else if I really need it. Furthermore, this also helps me because a certain amount of Camazotz's self-heal does come from how much damage he does. A lot of this is lifesteal, right? He's got lifesteal on his auto attacks by default. So right away, again, you'll notice I'm immediately going after him with my ability damage there. I disengage, I do another poke here. I'm rounding up his minions to hit them all at once with my AoE autos, and he backs off, you'll see. He's taking a lot of poke because he's been poking me pretty consistently. I poke him again, right? My minions have been winning. And there we go, level 2. Now, this is very important because you can actually see, I want to go back through that really quick because this is very pivotal for King Arthur, right? Because I know if I don't start poking him immediately, he's going to out-sustain me. So I need to slap him for damage right away. And a big motivation here is to make sure I hit him with an ability so that way I can get the Tainted Steel effect on him. Again, he does have built-in lifesteal in his auto attacks, and his third attack on his attack chain is an AoE, so I know that I run the risk, even if he can't out-clear me, he certainly can out-sustain me here. So I have to be very specific with how I do this. And you'll notice immediately I'm hitting him with that Tainted Steel, and then I spin to win, damaging both him and minions, and then I back off, and now I'm doing minion work here because I want to reset the minions. I want to actually keep the minions clustered up here because this means I can hit him. You can actually see him moving in with his AoE auto attack so that we can hit the full front wave here, the front line. This is why I'm trying to reset the wave. I want them to cluster up near him so that way I can hit him again with an auto attack, pull that minion aggro again, and then I can hit them with all my AoEs. Now, this is actually where I win the wave clear, right? The fact that I'm able to hit all 6 of his minions with my auto attacks for a couple of auto attacks gives me a huge advantage over him, who cannot do that. Furthermore, my minions are no longer in a straight line, which is going to make it more difficult for him to hit my entire wave with his sound wave ability, which should be coming up fairly soon. Right? So this is actually why I win that wave very specifically. So he backs off, which makes a lot of sense. I get to level 2. I'm backing off because I'm expecting the jungler. You can actually see the jungler. You can actually see Janus poke around, I believe, over here. Yep, there he is. So I back off, right? Because I hear the ping and I back off immediately. I don't actually... Now, this is an important note. I don't see Janus trigger that ward. But I know I'm the only one with wards on the table from an earlier glance, so I already know for a fact that that ping has to be my ward. And so I start backing off immediately, because the only person who would be triggering that would be Janus. So I back off, I turn around, and I'm going to be going on to Janus. Now, I'm fine with attacking Janus here, because Camazotz did lose the lane. He is, damaged Janos retreats. That's fine. Now, I don't really commit too hard to the totem. Raven does. Here's Janos. I decide to do some damage. He bails, which I was expecting because it was very interesting that he did not use his portal to attack Raven. So I kind of expected that move, which is fine. Now, again, going back onto Camazotz, I really want to fight Camazotz as much as possible right now, because right now his self-heal is incredibly weak, right? He has the least sustain he's ever going to have. So I really want to do as much damage as possible here. He does hit me with that poke, which is unfortunate, but I'm running my dual potions, so I'll heal it back up. It's not really a big deal, right? I'm clearing the wave. He's trying to poke me out, basically, is what he's trying to do. He's trying to get me to back off. But, of course, that doesn't really succeed with King Arthur here because I have too many minions, right? He almost dies here. I almost dive for him with my spin to win, but I decide against it because I don't know where Janos is. Or you can actually see where I kind of hesitate here, and then I attack here, and then I move forward a little bit here, but then I back off right afterwards because I don't know if Janos is truly left. And if I dive for that and Janos isn't around, I'm going to die, right? So I don't dive for that. Alright, that is very specifically why. And now I see Janos is in mid lane. I don't dive for this again because right now, he's about to use his teleport. That's fine. I can theoretically grab his scorpion or whatever. I decide not to. Again, Janos is missing, so I just go on ahead and go for the totem. That's what I'm looking for here. Right? I don't want to take any unnecessary risks because right now I'm ahead, and if I fall behind of Camazotz, it's going to be incredibly difficult to catch back up because of his sustain. So I'm treating this early game very cautiously due to my opponent. Now, at this particular point, this is why I was actually checking the items. At this particular point, Camazotz has not returned, and he really should have if he had teleport. The fact that he's not here means he doesn't, so I check what he has really quick. Just about now. Boom. He does not have teleport, he has Sundering Spear. Now this is very interesting, because this means that every time I force Camazotz back to Fountain, and I've forced him back now at level 2, I'm about to hit level 4, so I'm quite a decent bit ahead of him at this point. This means as long as I can keep him below me, and I can play cautiously, and go aggressive whenever I can, when I'm confident that I'm not going to get ganked. Again, Janos is a tricky jungler as an opponent. This means that essentially I can force Camazotz to lose wave despite his sustain. So this offers me a very interesting opportunity, but I also have to be very careful to not get too low around Camazotz because he could Sundering Spear me into a precarious position. So I have to treat this with some caution here. Basically, I have the lead now, so as long as I don't do anything insane, I should be fine. In theory, this is exactly what I'm thinking of right now. So I'm going to go ahead and leave these two minions behind, because at this particular point, what I want to do is go grab my mana buff. Right, I'm going to refresh my totem buff here. Lovely. Go back and clear some good old-fashioned mana camp by myself. Camazotz has returned. That's fine. And you'll notice I'm not using my spin here. This is very specifically because at this particular point in time, I want to save that for the wave clear, because the wave is going to be coming up. He's just cleared the wave. I don't want to be using that on just the blue buff. I'll be arriving in time. He's working towards one of the shields. I'm not sure which, but he's working towards one. He actually can work with both. I'm expecting Gladiator's shield because he isn't really going to be able to melee me, and this next fight is really going to prove that. Now, he attacks me here very specifically because he does want to sustain off the wave, and he has a whole lot of minions, right? So I do some damage to the wave, I disengage, I get to level 5, and I attack. And I attack mostly because Ravan is coming in, right? You can actually see, right? He's trying to poke me here, which makes sense, and then I'm going for the wave, and then he goes really hard on me. Now, originally, this jump looks like it's just to go for the front line, right? Let's look at this one more time. Again, this is very important for King Arthur. Right, he misses his poke. I go for the front line. He hits that, and I'm assuming he's going for the front line, and then he goes on to me right here, which is very interesting. But why he wants to do that is because he is just as keenly aware as I am that he's going to out-sustain me in the middle of a fight, right? He gets to heal off of all these minions. Now, Ravan is over here, and I already know for a fact that Ravan is coming this way for a gank, because there's no jungle over here, there's no farm over here, so he has to be here for a gank, right? He says, I'll gank, and then he pings. I don't know where he pinged, to be completely honest. I wasn't paying enough attention for that. So I fight, and then I'm taking a lot of damage here. You'll see I'm half dead, and he's about, maybe a quarter down. So I back off because it's really important I don't die before Ravon gets here, right? Especially since I don't know where Janus is. So I back off. He lets me back off. I re-engage. I get to level 5 in ult. And again, I'm very close to level 5 here. You can see where I'm getting really close here. I back off, clear some minions, right? Hit level 5, ult him. And then Ravon comes in to do some nice, serious damage. And the reason why he didn't jump out there was because my cripple there with the sweeping blow, that crippled him and he couldn't use his jump. Which, you know, is a fantastic thing with King Arthur, but now I'm very ahead of him, right? I've just hit level 5, he didn't hit level 5 before he died, and he doesn't have teleport, so I'm a fair distance ahead of him right now. Now, I am taking a gamble, right? I can actually, well, I say I'm taking a gamble here, but I'm really not, because if you pay attention, and this is something I did very specifically notice, right? While I'm traveling back to the wave, I see Janus right here, so I know that I'm safe to full clear this wave, right? I see Janus behind the mid tower. Much to Merlin's demise, unfortunately for Merlin, but this gives me basically free clear right here. I get to force, what is that, 1.5 waves under tower, but I back off in a hurry because I don't know where Janus is. He could be on his way. In fact, Ravon accidentally finds them going for the mid lane Harpies, and I'm going for Gladiator's Shield. Now, you might be wondering, Professor, why exactly are you going for Gladiator's Shield? Well, the very specific reason, actually, I don't need to pause this for this. The very specific reason why is because even if I had built Runeforged Hammer, I keep forgetting the name of that for some reason, even if I had built Runeforged Hammer, I would never be able to keep up with Kamazatz's sustain. It's just an impossibility for King Arthur. So, what my plan is instead is to build Gladiator's Shield to outdamage him since I'm already ahead, and also to reduce the amount of damage he's dealing to me, which will reduce a portion of his healing. Not all of it, obviously, right? But some decent portion of his healing. That is what my goal is. That is very specifically why I'm building Glad Shield rather than my usual choice of Runeforged Hammer. Alright? Now, I must actually really quickly point out, for literally any other physical laning opponent with a Janus jungle, it might have been a better idea for me to either pick up Runeforged or possibly what might have actually retrospectively been a better choice for me to pick up at this point would have been a very specifically Manticore's spikes, because I would have wanted the protections to help me against Janus, right? However, I go with Gladiator's Shield because I've only really seen Janus once, and I'm not necessarily that confident that he's paying so much attention to this lane. But it is a really important point to note that if it had been anyone other than Kamazatz, and I wasn't ahead, I would have very likely been more interested in going for either Manticore's spikes or Runeforged here. But again, due to the fact that I'm never going to keep up with Kamazatz's sustain, I go whole hog into the damage protection hybrid. Again, I would one day, well, I guess it's really just theory at this point because we'll never know, but it would have been interesting if I had chosen Manticore's spike and see how that would have changed this gameplay here, because I did choose Gladiator's Shield in this specific instance, but Manticore's spike would have been an equally effective option given the situation. Again, keeping in mind that Janus is a magic jungler in this particular case, as opposed to the usual physical jungler, right? So I force another wave under Kamazatz's tower. I'm going for the totem. Totem is fairly important to the rest of the team because you can see it gives that delicious 25 gold. I don't think that's spoken of often enough. That's why it's somewhat important. It gives everyone on the team 25 gold. It's basically like an extremely small version of the Gold Fury, really. So, you know, I'm clearing the wave. He's going for his blue buff. Now, what this clues me into, and this is the reason why I'm not using any abilities right here, because you can actually see where he goes off and I stop using abilities, as you can see him going over there. The reason why I stop using abilities is because I'm actually anticipating that he's going over there because Janus is over here, because I don't see Janus anywhere else on the field and haven't seen him for a minute or two, right? So I back off, because, again, I am assuming that Janus is there. That's why I wasn't using any abilities, is that way I could use what little mana I had left at that time to escape if I needed to use my abilities as an escape. That was my plan there. I still don't know to this day if Janus was over there, but he sure as hell didn't come into the solo lane if he was. Help Ravon clear this, that's fine. Bouncing back in we go. We have a good time here in Smite. And Camazotz is back, and he timed that fairly well, actually. What I think probably happened is he went to clear his blue buff with Janus, grabbed the blue buff, and then he walked back, right? Now, what I'm checking really quick right here with the scoreboard here, what I'm checking is very specifically what shield Camazotz wound up buying. He wound up buying Berserker's Shield. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad item on Camazotz. Again, his auto attacks do have built-in lifesteal. However, given the situation and given how behind he is at this particular point in time, he probably would have been better off, in theory, with Gladiator's Shield. Now, I understand that the reason he built this is because of Leather Cowl. He's trying to emphasize that lifesteal on his auto attacks. He's trying to increase his attack speed for that reason. I understand why he went with Berserker's Shield here. However, this is exactly the kind of thing that I talk about when I say you should really try to build a widely useful, a generically useful starter item. The Leather Cowl is very specifically heavily oriented towards auto attacks on a god that can play either auto attack or ability based, in this case Camazotz. By committing so hard to the auto attacks, he has now doomed half of his sustain and his bigger sustain, because he is emphasizing lifesteal here. He's doomed that to a high risk situation because King Arthur, of course, wants to fight people in wave. Granted, to some extent, so does Camazotz, but he's behind now, so that's really not going to happen. Alright, that is... Again, I understand he built this because Leather Cowl was his choice, but Leather Cowl was a bit too committed to a specific playstyle when he either could only best guess or didn't know at all who his laning opponent was. A better choice for Camazotz in a lot of situations in the solo lane, just as an off comment, is Bluestone Pendant, because you can evolve that into either the Bluestone Brooch if you're going abilities, or you can bust out a really nice Corrupted Bluestone, get increases in attack speed, have your abilities still deal some bonus damage, and you actually also get an increase in protections, something Camazotz, as an assassin, would need in the solo lane, since he would have lower baseline protections. But that's just something that I wanted to point out really quick. So the Leather Cowl was a bit too hard of a commit to the auto attack playstyle, which is going to bite him in the ass later on. Alright, you will see him have problems with using that specific strategy with Camazotz against not only King Arthur, but against the team in general. Okay? I'll point this out as we go along, because it is a very interesting thing, and it does really emphasize why I advise people all the time to build a starter item that will be useful in as many scenarios as possible, right? And in this particular case, it was a playstyle choice, not necessarily a situation choice. It was just, unfortunately, the most risky strategy. That's grammatically horrendous. The riskiest strategy versus the leading opponent of King Arthur, right? Again, I'm going to hit him with another ult. Now, I'm not really expecting to kill him anymore at this point. He is going to out-sustain me, generally speaking, right? And even though I do have the lead, he's got a full item where I only have 2/3 of an item. However, I do have the advantage here at this particular moment. I'm going to go ahead and throw my ward down there. Right, again, I'm trying to keep an eye on my blue buff. Go ahead and clear the wave again. I'm not terribly concerned about him killing me, but I am aware of the fact that my mana is running a little bit low, and I am going to need to go back pretty soon. I go back here. I'm actually not expecting him to let me back here, but he does. So, surprise to me, I guess. But I was not expecting him to allow me back like that. So I buy some multi-potions. Now, why am I buying multi-potions here? Primarily to ensure that I have at least enough sustain to get me through to the teleport, right? Because I still have, at this point, 100 seconds that I need to stay in lane before my teleport is back up. And I want to make sure that I can sustain to that point. So multi-potions become the solution, and you'll actually see where I use these throughout the match, at least for the first half of the match in the laning phase here, to that very similar effect. So we clear that, and then I'm going to go and clear the wave in this particular case. I could have gone for the totem, but Camazotz was still there. If Camazotz had started backing, which I believe he was thinking about doing, I would have gone for the totem there, because I would have had the time. But, nope. Now, Ravon goes for his blue buff. You might think this is a huge win. It really isn't. Again, Camazotz has a lot of natural sustain, and while this will hurt him more than it normally would because he didn't build teleport, this is by no means crippling for Camazotz. He will generally be okay with this. Now, of course, the key point here is that he would only be okay with this by getting to the little puddle of essence that he left behind when he died, but, you know, theoretically this wouldn't really hurt him, but it does in this particular case because, again, he does not have teleport. So now I clear the totem here. Again, I'm running a little low on mana here, and I've got 25 seconds, so the totem becomes very important for me in this instance. Right, I'm going to go back and refresh this, and that's lovely. Now, he is very likely gone back. I don't see him. I know his mana buff is down, and I know how long that's going to take, so I'm pretty confident he has, in fact, backed. So now I'm going to wander off and go kill my scorpion here. Right, just for the bonus golden experience. Again, I'm trying to stay as far ahead of him as possible because I don't want to goof something and fall behind, because that's going to be very problematic for me. If I fall behind Camazotz, or even if he catches up, that could be a problem. He returns to wave, he returns to wave, he returns to lane, and I'm returning to lane as well. Now again, he's trying to go on to me because he's fresh from the fountain. I am not, right? I was going to go ult him for some poke damage, but he went under tower, and I didn't want to go after him under tower with full HP. Keep in mind that he has not used his ult yet, so he would just be able to ult away from me if I did dive him in the tower, so that wasn't going to do me any good. Right, my blue buff isn't quite up, so I go and grab that really quick. Help out and get the obelisk powered. Right, lovely time there. Okay, so clear this. Camazotz is not there. I assume he's either going for, in fact, he does clear the totem there. You can actually just hear it there, but I was assuming he was going after that anyways when I didn't see him with the wave. I was correct. And now, of course, I'm going to clear this. Now, he's again going to go onto me pretty aggressively. I'm going to hit him with my ult here, primarily to stall out for the wave right now. I still have potions. You can see I still have my health chalice and my multi-potions that I haven't used yet. And I'm going to be just fine. I do some more poke, bust out my potions. Now, I could go back at this point, but I don't intend to. Right? I'm trying to poke him out. I'm trying to force him back. I want him to back before I do, because I can theoretically, obviously, beat him back to lane, so I'm trying to force him back. Now, Ravon calls a gank here, and I tell him no, very specifically because, again, Camazotz's ult is still up. So I don't think this is going to work, but Ravon insists, so I'm like, alright, let's roll with this, right? He goes in, and then, for some reason, Camazotz does not ult. I don't know why Camazotz did not ult. He could have saved himself with just an ult there, but he doesn't. So my wave goes under the tower. That's fine. I'm going to go on ahead and clear this guy. I'm going to go on ahead and grab that blue buff. And once again, I theoretically don't need to go back, but of course, we also don't know where Janos is. I don't have any magic protections, so I'm a little nervous. Right, so I'm just going to go on ahead and damage this wave really quick, so that way my next wave can clear the tower. Now I'm leaving. Right, again, I don't want to get caught out by Janos. Kill the last couple of minions there. Get out of dodge. Go ahead and grab the totem. And then, of course, I clear the tower. Now, clearing the tower is generally something you want to be very careful with as a solo laner, because, again, it does free up both solo laners to rotate into teamfights. I grab the Manticore spikes here because I'm about to rotate. And I grab Blink because I want to be able to chase down Janos very specifically, who seems to be a relatively big threat on the field. But anyways, I'm opening up both Camazotz and I to participating in team fights. I get there first because obviously I have teleport. I'm going to go and try to chase down Janos because he's a pain in the neck to chase down, but he blinks away, so I'm going to go ahead and commit to someone else, right? I have my ult. I'm going to ult Hercules. Now, this might seem like an unwise decision, but please remember that the Excalibur's Wrath does percentage of health damage, okay? So that actually is very effective on tanks. So I specifically use this on him. I pick up my Manticore Spike. I do some extra damage to Vulcan. I'm going to try to save Merlin here. Right, obviously Camazotz is back in. Now, why was I so comfortable allowing both Camazotz and I in? Obviously, due to the levels, right? This is not always necessarily the case. For example, if I were Bellona against King Arthur, I may not want to do that because in team fights, King Arthur generally has a larger impact than Bellona does, right? So if I was Bellona or, you know, a less team fight capable solo lane, I might not necessarily want to have cleared that, but I am King Arthur. Camazotz, while decent, doesn't exactly have the best team fight, right? I kill Janos here, which is great. I dive pretty hard here, and I almost die for this. Actually, I'm pretty sure that Hercules' shell absolutely saved me there. You know, Vulcan tries to kill me. That's pretty normal. I'm backing off. I actually stick around slightly, and I'm just waiting for my teleport to come back up, so I'm hoping to do some extra damage. And there it was, but then you can see something that I actually want to very specifically point out is a thing you need to watch out for King Arthur, where, right, we're here, and then Hercules grabs the Camazots, and then he attacks, and then I use an ability, and then I do my reflexive. And again, this is basically habit at this point for me. Auto attack afterwards, but the auto attack has this lunge, so I actually auto attack right into the Vulcan ult. And this doesn't happen to me very often because, again, I'm used to playing King Arthur, but it does, as you can see, occasionally happen. No matter how experienced you are with King Arthur, that kind of thing is every once in a while going to happen. So when you do play King Arthur, please be aware of this, right, as much as you possibly can. Again, it's a matter of time before you accidentally do it a couple of times, and the more inexperienced you are with King Arthur, the more likely this is to happen, obviously, because you're not... I mean, he's the only god in the game with a lunge on his auto attacks, right? So it does take some getting used to, and as you can see, occasionally one forgets. But it is something I really wanted to specifically speak about, and that was the moment, because obviously that lunge killed me, because I just reflexively used it. Right, I reflexively went into the auto attack after the ability use, and I died for it. Right, and that's just something that happens, right? So off we go to mid lane, because the fight is still continuing on for some bizarre reason. In fact, actually, for a large part of this match, it really feels more like just a large-scale arena than anything else, because we are almost constantly fighting for, I would say, the next 5 to 10 minutes, hands down. The fighting doesn't technically stop. Right, we're just all continuously rotating in and out of this one team fight for the entirety of, like, the next half of the fight. So I'm chasing down Vulcan here. I'm not likely to catch up to him, and I'm outpacing Uller fairly nicely. We get ambushed by the enemy Uller and the Janus. Now, the Janus I was expecting, because obviously Janus is everywhere, all at once. He unfortunately gets away, but then I don't know how the hell he got that. I don't care much either. I'm not going to question that. We go on ahead and go for Uller at this point, right? And I have my ult, so I'm looking to use that, and I miss it barely because the the Hercules timed his just fine, but that's, you know, Camazot still dies, so it doesn't make a difference. I just thought the timing was really funny there. And then, of course, we're going to theoretically look for the enemy's jungle, right? Which is fine. Now, Ravon goes in for their jungle. I'm going in for their Scorpion because I don't want to take that risk. Now, keep in mind that Ravon has much higher health and heals in the jungle. I believe he's got Boomba's dagger specifically, so he heals off of clearing jungle camps. So he can afford to be a little bit riskier than I am. Obviously, I don't have much in the way of sustain. I don't have any self-heal at all, actually. I've only got some MP5 out of my items, and that's about it. So Ravon then goes for the blue buff, which I'm going to help him with. Here's Hercules. Now, I'm a little nervous here because obviously where there's Hercules, there's usually someone else on the enemy team, so I'm getting out of here, right? I need to leave. I stop. I check really quick. You can actually see me check very quickly behind me. If you look, I check slyly to see if Hercules is still after us, right? You can see him back off there, but then I do a really quick check and I don't see him, so I'm confident in going for this, right? And I have the wrong angle because, boom, here's Janus' ult, and that really slaps me down, so I gotta get out of here, right? And then he portals me, and then I get hit by just the entire Hercules kit, and then, boom, death by Janus auto attack. Now, this was actually a really good move by the Janus, and the reason why it caught me is because I was not expecting Janus to use his ult to defend the totem of all things, at least this late in the game. That seemed like a rather extreme method, but it did get me killed, so he made the correct call there by all means. I just wasn't expecting the dedication to the totem. So that caught me very much by surprise, but I finished my Oni Hunter Scarp here, and you can see where they're prepping for another fight, or Hercules is poking around. I'm not really sure what Hercules is looking for there. Ravon has no mana, and Merlin isn't exactly in the best health. Now, I'm very specifically right here, wondering what everyone is building, because I haven't checked everyone's build yet, alright? So I'm doing kind of a quick scan to figure out what the hell everyone's building, right? Vulcan and Janus, they've got Book of Thoth, they're doing really well, they're doing high damage. Camazotz at this point has Transcendence, which is a little late for that, especially considering he's 3 levels down and 3,000 gold down, but okay. And then, of course, we have Uller with damage and attack speed and nice bluestone pendant. Yep, and then we have Hercules with pretty much what I was expecting here, right? He's got full protections. Now, notice actually something very quickly about our team composition, and this is something I'll talk about at the end of the match. We're 4 physical, okay? Hercules is building correctly here. He staggered his Gauntlet of Thebes in favor of Sovereignty really quick. I personally think he probably should have gone for something more aggressively physical oriented, or instead of going for Gauntlet of Thebes and then some form of magic protections, go even harder on physical, right? One or the other. And this is something, again, I'll talk about at the end of the match, but it is very interesting that they don't really adjust for the extreme physical. Hercules adjusted slightly by building Sovereignty, then Gauntlet of Thebes, but then he follows up with magic protections that he honestly probably does not need so much of, because given that he has Gauntlet of Thebes here already and at 38 stacks, and Merlin literally only has 15 flat penetration, he does not have any more than that. There really is not a point at this point in the game to building heavy amounts of magic protections. Gauntlet of Thebes is going to give him all the magic protections he's going to need, at least in the short term. Okay? So that is a mistake on Hercules' part. He's not really building appropriate to our team composition in this particular instance. So just something to sort of understand, because you're going to look at the enemy Hercules, and he'll only start to become extremely tanky in the late game. And that's really the reason why, is because he stops for a moment at this point in the game to build magic protections that he, frankly, does not really need, right? So I'm going, once again, after Janus, because he is an absolute nightmare to come after, right? He's obviously going to get out, go after Camazotz, go after Vulcan. I'm just trying to do as much damage as possible right now, right? Because that's my really big advantage over Camazotz, is how much damage I can bust out in team fights. Right? Very specifically. So that's all I'm trying to do. And again, keep in mind that I have Tainted Steel, so all of my abilities are providing an anti-healing effect as well. So I'm just trying to spread the love here of the anti-healing glory, and, you know, our Hercules grabs their Hercules. I foolishly go into that because I didn't think he had the mana for that. Little did I know. Right? I almost die. I gotta get out of here. Right? So now we're backing off slowly. I'm kind of walking backwards because I want to see if anyone's following Uller. I confirm sort of mentally that they're not. And then Hercules gets jumped on, so I come in to try to save him. And there we go. And I have to ult away from that Vulcan ult, because obviously he was about to slap me with either the meatball or the ult. It didn't really make a difference. I needed to get out of that. Right? It was either lose my ult or lose my life. And between the two of those, I'll take the losing the ult. Thank you very much. Now, it's a little surprising we dive this deep for Vulcan. We do get it, don't get me wrong, but it was a bit risky considering the fact that the enemy was coming back pretty fresh from the fountain. You can see the enemy Hercules came back completely fresh. Ravon is still fighting a relatively fresh Janus, and there was nothing I was going to be able to do about that. He gets killed. I mean, what else are we going to do? I was originally going to go for the Gold Fury, but there's too many enemies coming in, right? We have Janus, we have Uller, and we have Hercules coming in. Again, they're coming in fresh. And we really aren't coming in anything approaching fresh. And so we sort of back off. I want to retreat fully here because I'm not in great health. And I see an opportunity to go for Janus because I didn't think he had this much health. Because you can see where I'm kind of poking around trying to figure out where the hell he is, right? So I'm dodging the Hercules because he's going to lock me down, and I don't need that, especially with Uller right there. So I poke around, and here's Janus trying to leave. I'm like, all right, let me do something with this. Blink past the unstable vortex, and with literally most of my kit, he does get away right there. And now I'm trying not to die to the Uller Hercules. Hercules fortunately does not have his stun, because if he did, I'd be dead right there. And then I'm able to get out. Right now, I leave this time because I actually have my teleport up to full, which I don't believe it was. It was up before. Alright, never mind. So, you know, I'm looking to teleport back into this fight. Here we go. Boink. And, I'm looking to scare the Hercules. It works. I was actually expecting it to actually cut him a little closer than that, but misjudged my distance there. I ask Ravon to defend the left lane. This is a great ganking opportunity because we know 3 of them just went back to Fountain. We saw that in mid lane, so he's not likely to receive reinforcements anytime soon. He ults away, and we're just not going to catch up to him. So I back off. Hercules finds Vulcan in the jungle, so we're looking at maybe a fight here. I get slapped. Now, I actually forgot to mention this because I skipped over this, but it is very interesting to note. Actually, I'll go ahead. Now, I'll pause this. I'm going for the Breastplate of Valor in this particular instance, very specifically because when you evolve Tainted Steel, you have to choose one of 2 versions, each one giving you a huge boost in one protection and a small one in the other. What I want very specifically is the magic one, the Tainted Amulet, because the Breastplate of Valor, with its 20% cooldowns, is going to do more for me, especially since it also has a little bit of MP5. It has 10 MP5, and I get to throw a glyph on that, which will give me even more durability. So, my move here is very specifically the Breastplate of Valor, because, quite frankly, cooldowns, MP5, physical protections, and then when I evolve my Tainted Steel into the Tainted Amulet, I'm going to get a huge boost in magic protections, and that will balance out my protections really nicely. Now, I wouldn't normally want to balance out my protections so much, but in this particular case, with the enemy having a physical support and a magic jungle, this means there's less physical damage than you'd think, and more magic damage than you would normally expect, right? So we kill off Camazotz really quick, and again, this is really where his choice of build really starts biting him in the ass here, is because he's not able to maintain close enough proximity most of the time to auto attack for that lifesteal, right? I'm able to ult Janos, he beads out. He beads out? I don't really know. I've never really figured out what that specific term was supposed to be. Now, he does barely make it out, which is fine. We just turn and go after the enemy team. You can see how much damage that the Hercules is taking here, because again, he doesn't have as much physical protections as he probably should. I get, you know, the last blow with my auto attack there. Now we're after Uller, right? Barely misses that. I stun him, right? And I only stunned him with my ult there rather than saving it up for the bigger version, because very specifically I wanted to slow down. Now at this particular point, I realized that the enemy team has almost completely respawned except for Hercules, and we need to get out of here, right? Ravon says attack, and I'm trying to leave, and I'm letting him know that I'm falling back, and we really need to get out of dodge, because again, they're all coming back fresh. There's no way I can save him, right? I look at this, and I'm like, no, I can't save him there, right? So I'm getting out of here. Ravon says gank for some reason, not sure what he was expecting me to do there. That was 4 enemies fresh from the fountain, whereas all 3 of us were at least half dead by that point, so I don't really know what he was expecting. I left my miracle in my other pants, unfortunately for him. But, you know, again, the enemy team now, with that victory of Ravon dying, is now looking to continue the fight, right? So I'm just trying to keep the pressure off of King Arthur. Hercules right here, I'm trying to get him out. I succeed because they back off in a hurry. And now at this point, I'm just trying to defend mid lane. They're all off to go for Uller. I warn him of this. And meanwhile, I'm just clearing the wave, so that way the wave doesn't take the tower. I'm going to go ahead and clear the next wave. I'm pretty close to full health. I also have my chalice still up with 2 more uses, so I'm not too concerned about my health at this point. Right, here's Hercules. I'm not really going to pay him too much attention, but then he initiates on me, and I get nervous. Right, you usually, when the enemy support initiates, usually there's a reason. So I'm trying to get out of here, right? I'm just trying to leave. It's getting spooky out here, but I have my Hercules, so I'm like, all right, let me do some poke here and see what we get. And then Vulcan comes in. Hercules almost gets Vulcan. That's fine. Hercules gets me, but I ult him. Right, and you can see where he was about to dash into me, too. He does it after the fact, but still, I stalled him out. And I go on to Janos, because, again, he's the bane of my existence. He's the bane of everyone's existence that isn't named Janos. And they start backing off when Camazotz dies. Now, it's very interesting where I accidentally, and I don't even intend to do this, I accidentally drive the enemy away from Camazotz, right? Because Janos and Camazotz come in here, right? And Camazotz, of course, he dives in. And he dives in specifically because, again, he wants that melee range, right? He's going after Merlin at this point, and he's going after Merlin because he's level 15, Merlin's level 15. It's a fairly even match. He's not going to kill me. I'm 4 levels higher than him. That's not going to happen, right? Especially since I don't think he has any pen at this point. So he's not going to break through my protections. But he can theoretically get Merlin, so that's exactly what he's going to do. Or at least try to do. right? So I've accidentally sectioned him off. Now, I don't know where Uller is, I don't know where Vulcan is, but they're not there to help Camazotz. So the only other participants at this fight are after me. There's Vulcan, he was being scared or something, I have no idea. So I decide to recommit to this offensive, because who's going to stop me? Vulcan? Right? He's nowhere near me, right? So I'm going to go on ahead and do all of this, go deep on this, get my ults. He doesn't have his beads, he dies. Wonderful. Slap around the enemy Uller. Now, this is a risky proposition for me because he is a hunter, and hunters are kind of supposed to take out the tanks, but it all works out. Now, I want to attack the tower. I don't know why Hercules does not tank this. I'm trying to tell him to do so, but he's too busy concerned with the Uller. And we really should be trying to take this tower here. Our Uller is after the speed buff. Again, I have no idea why. The tower is far more important than the speed buff. He does show up, but it's a little late because now the enemy is on us. Camazotz has just respawned. Vulcan is, coming into this fight, and he's fairly fresh. I get decimated by the two of them for the fairly obvious reason that Uller and Vulcan combined do fairly well against any solo laner at that point, right? Yeah, I'm sure I'm ahead by one. Well, I'm ahead of Uller by one level, but Vulcan is also level 19, so that was never going to happen, right? I start working on the Crusher. Now, the reason I start working on the Crusher is because the enemy team, as I've just confirmed, does not really have a huge amount of protections. In fact, as far as I know, and I should have double-checked. Actually, I think I did double-check really quick. Did I double-check? If I didn't double-check, I should have. Because I'm going for the Crusher right there very specifically, because I want to do some damage. Because normally my primary damage item when I usually play King Arthur is the Bluestone Brooch. But I've built Tainted Steel this time, so I need another source of damage. And given how squishy the enemy team comp is generally, I'm going for the Crusher because the 15 flat penetration is going to do me more good than the 10% of Heartseeker, and the bonus damage on that, which is 20 flat plus 20% of my power, is going to do me more than... It's going to do me more good than the 3% of their max health, right? So that's very specifically why I'm building the Crusher there. I really should have double-checked what they were building first. It is a bit of a gamble. It does work out, as you'll see, but I should have checked before really locking that in. And I certainly don't need Brawler's Beatstick. Again, I have Tainted Steel, so that's not really going to make any kind of difference, right? So I'm teleporting back in here. And, we're trying to get Camazotz here. I don't know where the enemy Uller is. I'm just trying to make sure that Camazotz dies and Ravon does not. We kill Camazotz. That's great for us. Now, it's kind of like, what do we do now? Because not enough of us are alive to really do anything really that useful. I'm going to head over here to try to clear a wave, get to level 20. I decide I'm going to go for the Scorpion instead because it's a little less risky. I'm glad I did so because I'm pretty sure the enemy team is taking the blue buff as we speak. Their blue buff, if I'm remembering correctly, unless that was a bit of a different point. My memory might be, my memory is a little bit confused here. Right? So now I'm going to go for the blue buff. I really shouldn't be. This is a huge risk. I'm going for their blue buff on their side. I'm level 20, sure, but, here's Vulcan, here's Hercules, and now I gotta get out of here, right? I've overstepped my bounds a little bit, and I even blink out because I do not want to get caught out, right? We are ahead as a team. We are in a really good position. I die and they win a team fight, we're in trouble, right? Now, I counterattack this Hercules right here because this is not the first time that he's just initiated something without actually having his allies here. So there's a 50% chance from my perspective, based on how this match has gone, that he has no backup here. Alright, either way, this is on our side of the jungle, so, we're more likely to get reinforcements faster than he is. So, and also I have Ravon right there as well. So, I go hard on Hercules here. You can see how much damage he's taking here as well. You just get absolutely smacked, right? We kill him before he gets through the portal, which is huge. Now we have a huge advantage in the coming team fight. He's dead for 45 seconds. My team aggressively pursues the enemy team for the very good reason that they no longer have their front line. They kill Uller, which gives our tanks pretty much free reign. I go on to Janus. Great pull by Hercules there. That was really actually quite well placed. Right, now we're just trying to kill him. I stun him for the Ravon, and then there he goes. Right, and then Camazotz is half dead. Vulcan is maybe, yeah, sure, he's fresh from the fight here. That's, very true, but he's also just a mage. He also throws away his ult, which is absolutely huge news for us. Camazotz just ults away, which is the smart move, and then we can just kill Vulcan here. He basically abandons Vulcan, which makes sense. There's nothing he can do to save Vulcan. Camazot's major flaw as a character is his complete lack of crowd control of any variety. So there was nothing he was going to be able to do to save Vulcan in that instance anyways. Ravon calls for attacking the Fire Giant. It's not a bad idea, right? We might be ahead, but we're not ahead by that much, right? But Camazotz comes back out, and I know his ult is down, so I know this is a kill, right? Boom. Dead. Right, here's Hercules back. Now, I'm pretty sure Hercules is just stalling here. He does wind up killing Merlin, yeah, but I'm pretty sure his only real goal here was to stall us out. It does kind of work, right? And I reaffirm the attacking of the Fire Giant because, again, we're decently ahead, but with a nice Fire Giant buff, we could theoretically push to end, right? And I'm trying to back here, and then I get attacked by minions, and I don't actually back. And I'm going to teleport in, but I have to leave because obviously I'm getting slapped by minions. And then Harpies, it's just some kind of nightmare. Hercules goes onto the Harpies for some bizarre reason. I think he just wanted the farm. I go ahead and upgrade the Tainted Amulet, get myself some boosted protections. Uller saves the left lane upon my request, which is really nice of him. And then off I go for my blue buff. Again, even though it's late game and I have really high MP5, King Arthur is an unusual case in which he still wants that MP restoration, right? There's just no two ways about it. There really isn't. So, off we go. Uller helps me out a little bit there, which is really nice. And, you know, we're just doing what we can. And I'm clearing this for the gold primarily. I really want the Crusher. Our allies are roughly close enough where I'm not too worried about anything, right? Here's Hercules. Again, he might have started something he doesn't actually have backup for. He leaves this time, and there's his team in mid lane, so yeah, he did not actually have any backup there. This seems to be some kind of weird habit for Hercules. He just kind of goes around and does things. Not really sure what the goal there is. Now, I make a mistake and I initiate. Why is this a mistake? We don't have Ravon there. Alright, I should not be here. I'm also, you'll notice, if you pay attention to the minimap, I am grossly outpacing my allies here. So I die here for... I do some damage, but I don't really die for anything. Merlin also dies in the background, so I basically just... I'm half of the reason we just threw away a fight, basically. Alright, I should not have initiated that. I was assuming my allies would follow me in, but we didn't have Ravon, and Merlin was getting killed in the background, right? Now, Ravon does come in, and they're all looking to go for the Vulcan. They're all looking to kill the Vulcan. The Uller here does pick up Vulcan, but that's still 1 kill to 2 right now. And, I mean, Ravon barely makes it out alive, right? Now, this is a mistake by the Hercules here. The Hercules chases the Janus way too far. Once Janus went through that portal, he should have turned around and gone back to save Uller, who's now in a 3v1, right? Uller is not likely to survive this. And this is primarily because the Hercules spent too long chasing the Janus. Right, there he goes. This is why the Uller says, okay, it really was Hercules' fault that he died there. The Hercules should never have chased Janus that far. Up until Janus went through the portal, sure, I can understand the chase. But the instant Janus went through that portal, there was no hope Hercules was going to catch up to Janus and kill him, right? So Ravon kills Uller. I'm not quite sure how he managed this in the middle of a 1v3, but he did. They take out Camazotz. They take out the Hercules. Now we're looking for the Fire Giant. We're all right here, except for poor Uller. The only one left alive is Vulcan, and who just respawned, and Janus. So there is some risk here. I will freely admit that. There is a little bit of risk going on here that one of the two could ult and steal this, but we have decent ward coverage. You can see Ravon really doing his thing. The Janus ult actually only serves to help us, so does the Vulcan ult, although it does almost kill me. But both of them actually accidentally wind up contributing extra damage, and we get to kill it a little bit faster, which is really nice for us. It's a lovely time. That's pure accident. They absolutely were trying to steal it. They just mistimed it very badly. The only reason they mistimed it that badly, by the way, because you might be surprised at how off they were in terms of timing. The reason why they were so off is because they probably didn't realize Uller wasn't there with us, right? If Uller had been there, those both would have been much closer to actually taking that. However, because Uller was dead, it wound up working in our favor entirely by accident. So that's not really a mistake. Well, it is sort of a mistake because they should have been able to check Uller's portrait and realized he was dead at the time, right? So that was just them failing to double check. They just assumed Uller was there doing damage as well, which would have, again, put the Fire Giant much lower. Now I'm pressing left lane because Ravon wanted to take this catapult, and I almost forget to bring it with me. I almost totally forget the catapult. But this is really looking to be our final push. We have Fire Giant, we have a catapult. With the exception of Merlin, who is level 19, we're all level 20, and two of the enemy team, Camazotz and Hercules, are only level 17, right? The Hercules are probably just having a slap fight in mid lane right now. Actually, considering Hercules' HP isn't even going down, they're not even doing that. They're probably just commiserating, as Hercules are wont to do together. But the problem is that they're not moving towards left lane, which puts us over here in left, Ravon and I, in a very interesting position, right? Here's Merlin, by the way, and Merlin's trying to take the tower. He's doing his best. We dodged the Janus ult. We dodged the Vulcan ult, which wasn't even close to that Vulcan ult, and we're in really good shape. Now, I go just blasting through the tower because Hercules is here, Ravon dives. Again, I'm looking for the Janus here very specifically. I wind up with the Uller. It's good enough, right? He beads out of it. All right, beadsed out of it, I guess I should say. And then, I'm just trying to push. The catapult takes the tower, which we assumed would happen. We take Uller, which is great. Merlin got him. And then I'm just looking to dedicate some time here. I'm not going in yet, though, because the catapult isn't here. I want that catapult to be in position before I dive. Okay, because even if I die at that particular point, we still would have the catapult available to deal with the Phoenix. We have the catapult in position. Here we go. I'm going full. Keep the enemy off of it. Right, I'm going to go for the Janus. Gonna slap some people around. We're gonna do some damage. Ravon takes the Vulcan, which is great. I'm looking to take out the Janus. He beads out of it. I still don't know what that term should be, how that should be pronounced. We have the enemy Hercules back here. I want to take him out because if we can take him out, that's the enemy's front line pretty much gone. Actually, considering Camazotz is dead, that is the enemy's front line being gone, but we really can't swing that. So we're looking to leave because the Fire Giant buff is only lasting for 50 more seconds. Hercules calls an attack on the middle Phoenix, which is a good call, by the way. The Uller actually turns around because he is at full health. This is the correct call here. We actually shouldn't have even backed off quite then. We still had a good half a minute or so of Fire Giant, so, Uller comes in. I'm just running this deep in to keep them busy. That is literally all I want to do. I am not intending to kill anyone. I just want to keep them distracted. We take the Phoenix. I'm looking to do some damage here. I'm actually trying to get out alive, kind of, but I'm also not looking to abandon my allies. I'm wondering if this is the final push, right? I'm kind of like, can we take this? I completely whiffed my altar. That was just trash. I'm wondering if we can take this. So I'm just doing what I can. I'm trying to do whatever damage I can, just to get, what we can here. But we lose the Fire Giant buff. Ravon calls the retreaters result, and I'm like, all right, out we go. We'll bail out and make another attempt. I'm trying to keep an eye on the Hercules here because I'd rather not have him die, right? And then here comes the enemy Hercules, which is a good move, by the way. That was a really good maneuver by the enemy Hercules, but he was unfortunately much faster than his team was, and he's kind of left here on his own. The Uller dies by diving equally as deep when he really shouldn't be. He had no business being there. I barely make it out of this, right? The enemy Hercules blinks on me. I blink away from that, and then I'm out of here. And then my Hercules goes on him, so I'm like, all right, you know what? I'll do what I can here to finish him off. Right. Let's see what we can do here. Bloop, get the stun. Ravon finishes him off, and I'm out of here, right? Now, I make a silly little mistake here. I am standing at the archers, and I kind of figure that I'm going to be fine. I'm not going to get shot. Boom, I get shot by minions. All right. Try again. Right. Now, keep in mind that I've been so tanky due to the fact that I have very specifically a bit more than the usual protections. I actually am running somewhere of 50 more protections than I normally run on King Arthur, which is why I'm so absurdly tanky. Also keep in mind that I get the benefit occasionally of Hercules' auras, so if you like how tanky I appear to be here, keep in mind that this is very much due to the protections I happen to be running. If you want to emulate this, but you don't want to be building Tainted Steel all the time for the fairly obvious reason that Tainted Steel is impractical in non-healing comps, I would recommend Warrior's Axe. This is, if you were to build Warrior's Axe as your starter item and then go for Mantle of Discord, you would have very similar levels of protections here, okay? If you like this tankiness, if you're a bit more of a damage dealer, then obviously you would want to stick with the Bluestone, which would sacrifice a bit of protections for you, obviously. Now we're going for the Fire Giant here. This is a risky take we're going to be pulling here because the entire enemy team is alive, and yes, we are ahead, and we're decently far ahead at this point, but it's still a risk because, again, they do have the Janus ult, they do have the Vulcan ult, as shown earlier, so we are running quite an interesting risk here, and this actually, I don't know how we get this. We do get this, spoiler warning. I'm not sure how, though, because this gets fairly wild and woolly very quickly, right? Because here's, all of a sudden, there's, you know, the enemy Hercules is there, right? He throws his ult and then he's behind me. I have no idea where he sprang from, but we got it, and then we're just going to go on to the enemy team here and just do what we can. Now, I'm immediately, again, going for the Janus because I really want to separate him. The enemy team focuses heavily on me, which is a mistake because obviously I'm not the biggest amount of damage on the team. Hell, I'm only really doing damage through the Crusher. I get smacked around a little bit, right? And off we go into just taking the Titan, because at this particular point, 2 of them are dead, we're all 5 up, and only Merlin is even remotely damaged in a decent way here, so we're in a really good position. And credit to Merlin, he full focuses on the Titan as much as he can, because he understands that he's not exactly in great health. You can see how many abilities he's throwing out there, trying to clear the Titan before he dies, and then we, of course, take the Titan. Right? And again, this is a little tankier than I normally build King Arthur, but from experience I can tell you that given the current meta right now, this changed extremely recently, this is a better way of building him than even 2 weeks ago before the most recent update, alright? But now let's talk very quickly about builds. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I've already talked to some extent about builds. You can see the Hercules where he built Genji's Guard, then he went into Mantle of Discord, and then he finally finished up with Witchblade. Now, again, the problem here primarily is that he's got far too much focus on magic protections. If he had just swapped out Genji's Guard for even just Breastplate of Valor, he would have been far better off here, because the duo protection items, the Mantle of Discord and the Gauntlet of Thebes, that's fine. Given the circumstances, again, he would need some magic protections for Merlin, but at the end of the day, he didn't need an entire dedicated magic protection item given we were for physical. That's all I'm really going to say about Hercules' build, because it's really the only thing wrong with it is just this Genji's Guard. It's the only issue I see with this. Now, for the Camazotz, he does something very similar, but of course, with Caduceus' shield, the really main driving point here is that it's also going to increase his heal, so I can understand why he would go for that. His only real mistake, in all honesty, is his stacking item was Transcendence. He was already behind when he started this item. He really should have actually scrapped the idea and gone for Soul Eater. It would have done him far more good. It would have made his abilities hit a little bit harder, which, of course, was primarily what he was hitting, right, was his abilities. He kept building, and you can even see where he finished with Bloodforge, where he was still going for a certain amount of auto-attack damage, but that just isn't going to work there, right? Against King Arthur, that's not a great idea to go auto-attacks. You've got Hercules, which puts you in a prime position to get slapped by Hercules, although, quite frankly, Hercules can pull you to him anyways. Uller is just as dangerous in melee as he is at range, so trying to auto-attack Uller can still mean your death. And Ravon, of course, once you get into melee with Ravon, it's nearly impossible to get away from him without the use of some ult or beads. Right, on top of this, he also did not have teleport, which was hugely crippling for his ability to match me level for level. The rest of the builds on the enemy team are fairly standard. There's nothing particularly egregiously wrong with these. Actually, they're all great builds for Vulcan, Uller, and Janus. These are all perfectly fine builds. Nothing wrong with those. It was just the Camazotz' lack of teleportation and his insistence on Transcendence, and for Hercules, it was just building Genji's Guard instead of Breastplate of Valor that really hurt their team. That, and the fact that the Hercules kept trying to solo-initiate things for no reason. But, with that being said, that is King Arthur in the solo lane. Thank you all very much for joining me. If you liked this, please like and subscribe. If you didn't, please ignore me. And if you have any comments, questions, concerns, ideas, suggestions, or requests, please leave them down in the comment section below. And thank you all very much for joining me, and have a great 24 hours.